This is May of 2008, and I mean, you weren't just saying in this declaration that they decided to have it sent. You specifically said you had a conversation where it was decided that you should not carry any of the drugs on the plane.
Well,
that was just wrong, wasn't it?
What was not to be carried was the drugs with labels that identified them as drugs, and the clear and the cream had no labels whatsoever. And that's when, you know, it may have been discussed that it may not be a good idea to take them on the plane, but then I remember at the end, because the dosage of the cream was required the following day, that they did take the clear and the cream, and that's where we discussed
okay, but
the
when
cover
you're
story. So if this indicates that that's not the case, then this is wrong, and my recollection at this time is now a bit different.
okay. Under oath, though, right?
My attorney drafted this, I reviewed it, and I signed it.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you knew now we get to the, what exhibit is this one? Number 6. Let's go to exhibit 6.
I'm not sure what, this one here?
This is the affidavit you signed after you had already known that you'd made a mistake about the Sports Illustrated comment in your earlier affidavit, right?
It was just basically, you know, accidentally included in this one, and it got removed in this one because I'd had no contact with Sports Illustrated.
But my point is that this was the affidavit that you took particular care to be accurate with, precisely because you knew that your earlier affidavit had not been accurate in some respects, right?
Once again, I had discussions with my lawyer in California. They prepared it, I reviewed it and signed it. I had another set of discussions with my lawyer in New York because she filed a second lawsuit, and I reviewed this, and to this minute I believe 99% of what I hear is accurate, but there may have been one thing, for example, that could be an oversight.
How many times did you read it before you signed it?
I don't know.
How long did you take to read it?
An adequate amount of time.
An adequate amount of time? How long was that?
Well, as I can see, it's quite a few pages here.
Well, when we say an adequate amount of time to do what?
I'm sure that there were other drafts, and I'm sure that there was other input and corrections and discussions that were made along the way. So it took, you know, I don't know how long, but it took as long as it took.
Because I take it there were times you wanted to make sure that it was as accurate as possible.
I certainly attempted to make it accurate.
And one of the things you did was make reference to the calendar so that you knew, for example, how much he had been paid, right?
I may have looked at the calendar, yes.
Okay. Well, so let's look down on page 4, paragraph 21. I provided Mosley and Hudson with a doping calendar which listed codes for the respective drug usage with respect to each day up until just before his match against De La Hoya. The calendar provided that Mosley ceased taking the clear.
The calendar provided
that Mosley ceased taking the clear and the cream at the end of August 2003 to avoid detection in the event of a drug test leading up to or following the September 13th, 2003 championship fight. That, in addition, the calendar provided that Mosley stops injecting the EPA EPO on September 8th, 2003, so that if a drug test were conducted in connection with the championship fight, Mosley's blood doping would not be discovered, and that I charged $900 for the EPO, $600 for the clear and the cream, $150 for the blood work, and $200 for the limousine that transported him to my offices and back to the airport. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And you signed this affidavit on December 22nd, 2008.
Yes.
You're not saying, are you, that on December 22nd, 2008, you had an independent recollection of what day Mr. Mosley was to stop, what the exact dollar amounts were that you were paid, when he was supposed to stop the EPO versus when he was supposed to stop the clear and the cream, right? Well,
Independent of
the
looking at
calendars.
the calendars?
Right.
Some of it I do have a recollection independent of the calendars.
How about all of it? Let me rephrase it. You in fact looked at the calendars to make sure that you were accurate in this affidavit, weren't you?
I may have.
Well, was there anything else you could have looked at?
I remember him, I can tell you, for example, the denomination of the $500 that he counted out in cash, where, if you recall, Shane Mosley later said, I gave a check, never gave me cash. We certainly did give cash. Okay, and he must seem to have gotten it from an ATM, because they were in all $20 bills. That's not notated anywhere, but I recall that.
Well, but did you do that's? Let's try this again. You're sitting here today. Do you have an independent recollection, without this document, that September 8th was the day that he was to stop EPO?
Well, that's something that I generally know, that EPO takes at least 3 to 4 days to clear. It's better to have a safety factor, so we discussed this, and there was certainly a taper period where it would be undetectable, and that taper period was 8 days.
Let's put it this way. You had the calendar accessible to you, right?
I may have.
Well, you know you did have the calendar accessible to you, because your attorney had it. You're now saying you're not even sure if you had the calendar available to you?
What I'm saying is, I don't know. There's been two versions of this. This has been regurgitated from California to New York. There's been slight changes in this.
This is December 2008.
You're asking me, did I get it out the day that I signed this and review it, hold it up side by side with the affidavit? I could have. I don't recall exactly.
What steps did you take to make sure that a document that you were signing under oath?
At some point, I have reviewed the calendar before I signed this.
Okay.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And you don't know, sitting here today, whether or not you were barred from using your reliance on the calendar in a litigation by reason of a protective order.
At what point?
When you signed this affidavit, or when you spoke to when you signed this one, or you signed the other one in May, Exhibit 5?
As I already told you, all the details of this calendar were disclosed and written about in 2006 and 2007.
But you said
2008.
But you said you looked at the calendars in arriving at these affidavits.
I said at some point I may have, yes.
No, you said you did, sir.
I did.
Okay.
Okay.
What
Let's take the time and go back and clarify that.
I'm asking you now.
Yes.
At the time you looked at it, you were, am I not correct, that you were using the calendars to assist you in submitting public papers in a case? Isn't that correct?
I just answered the question, and you said and I said to you, did I hold them up together and look at this and verify this? And I said I don't recall that.
You didn't answer my question. You did testify, did you not, that at some point you looked at the calendars in order to be able to prepare at least one of the affidavits, correct?
I may have.
Well, now you only may have looked at one of the calendars? You're not sure anymore?
I've certainly looked at them. I created them, so I've seen them at different points in
Did you
time.
look at the calendars in connection with the preparation of either of these
I likely did.
affidavits?